Morning, fellas. It's been a bit of a hectic start to the day. I've got a meeting first thing, so just woken up and about to jump straight into it. So we'll update you afterwards. Hi guys. Not been able to record a huge amount today just because I've been quite busy. Had a few meetings, signed a client, which is really good. I'll tell you about that in a second. A couple of the calls no-showed, so we're going to implement some processes around hopefully increasing those show up rates. So immediately after Connor books them, he's going to stay on the call with them and confirm that they've received the invite, ask them to check their spam folders and everything. Then I'm going to send them a voice message on WhatsApp, basically saying that I'm looking forward to speaking to them. And then Connor's going to call to confirm day of as well. And I think if we do those three things, our show up rates will go up a lot. But anyway, client that we signed, it was a great meeting. He's like a commercial, he does commercial loans for businesses. So we're doing kind of like a commission only deal with him. He paid us $1,000 up front, paid it like 5 minutes after the call. So that's really good. And then everything else, we're just going to be running meta ads for him, commission only, but he's paying all of the meta ad spend. So this is a fucking great deal for us because I basically get to go sandbox mode and experiment with ads on somebody else's dime and get paid 40% as well on any deals that he signs as a result of that. And his average deal size is anywhere between like $2,500 to $5,000. So I'm getting $4,000 of that for anybody that we generate for him using his money. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here. I think that's a fucking stonking deal. So yeah, that's good. I'll update you guys if anything else happens. Peace. To become the kind of person who's able to consciously shape the future into the reality that you desire, you have to be able to respect yourself. And I was just on a call with this guy who I met through one of the online groups that I'm in. Startup entrepreneur, struggling to sign his first client. So I said I'd hop on a call with him and give him some advice. And when he was asking me about my journey as to how I got started, I was saying that there was a period where I worked on the business for a few months but didn't take it super seriously because it was the first time I'd ever been my own boss. And, I didn't respect that guy. I was never going to listen to him. And, I said it flippantly, but I realized how true it was. Is that when I first started on this entrepreneurial path, I didn't respect myself enough to take my own advice or to listen in the way that I would to a mentor or somebody that I respected telling me to do something. And I think the biggest thing that separates the successful entrepreneurs from those that give up before they make it, it's not how intelligent you are, it's not how, it partly is about how resilient you are, but if you're just resiliently doing the same half-assed shitty actions again and again, then it probably won't work. So the key factor, I think, is in actually being willing to look within yourself and try and answer the question of, why can I not do the thing that I want to do? I have this dream, I have this goal in my head of what I would like my life to look like, and I know that it's possible because other people have done it. It doesn't break the laws of physics. So why then, if I say I want this thing and I know that I've got to do these things to get that thing, why can't I do it? And it sounds like a deceptively simple question, but it's actually very complicated because the amount of personal shit that you have to work through, and I know, there's some views out there, trauma doesn't exist. I don't know, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It depends whether you're more of a fan of like Jung or Adler, I suppose. I like both. But either way, you've got to resolve some shit. And it's not easy. It's not easy to do. So yeah, overall message is learn to respect yourself. And if you don't respect yourself, if you can't give yourself an instruction and then trust that you will follow through on it, why not? Why don't you respect the past version of yourself who set that task for you enough to do what he says? Figure that one out.
And you can make a lot of money and do a lot of other cool stuff as well. Because that is truly the key towards becoming the master of your own reality. And then instead of life just being a series of things that happen to you, it becomes something that you can consciously shape. Because I joke with my friends that I can predict the future. And I can, because I know that at this time I'm going to be doing this thing. And if I do that for this length of time, it will result in this outcome. Therefore, I can predict the future just by knowing that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. It's like the world's simplest superpower. Honestly, try it. Why do I think that it's important to post authentic content online? Well, imagine, if you will, a future where the world goes tits up. I know, crazy, right? Almost impossible to even comprehend. But let's say that the systems that have held up our society for the last, 100 years, however long, start to collapse. And people begin to set up their own decentralized networks outside of the bounds of state control. I heard somebody recently describe the UK as anarcho-tyranny, and I feel like they kind of have a point, because you can do almost anything in the UK. The police are incredibly underfunded, and if you're smart about it, the chances of you getting caught for, especially like minor stuff, very, very slim. Drugs may as well be legalized in the UK, because if you get caught with them, nothing will happen. The police will probably just take them off you, and you might get a warning or something like that. And the justice system is very kind of backed up. Our prisons are overcrowded. So there's a lot that you can get away with in the UK. However, if you get caught, then the penalties are extremely severe. And it's also, going back to what I was saying earlier about respect, you have to earn respect for yourself. I think a lot of people understand that respect does have to be earned. You can't demand respect. And, to do so is a fool's errand. It's the... Wait for this car to go past. Demanding respect is the tyrannical father who comes home and, can't even manage his own emotions and yet expects everybody else in the household to bow down to him. It's the same concept as the tyrannical government that, how can you demand respect from your citizens when you aren't even upholding your end of the social contract? Like, if you get a job, but you can't afford to live, then something is fundamentally broken in there, because, first of all, capitalism is a system that you can't really volunteer to participate in, because if you don't participate in it to some degree, then you starve. So already you're kind of being forced to play this game. But at least in years past, you could kind of justify it to yourself by saying, well, you know what, yeah, sure, I'm forced to work 40 hours a week for somebody else, but at least I get a decent quality of life out of it. If you look at like America in the 50s, for example, then sure, it's no wonder that people were so embracing of the American dream, because for your average person back then, the quality of life for your everyday working man, working family, had never been higher. But that's no longer the case anymore. And, a lot of people still lust after those glory days and think that we can go back. No, too late for that. It'll never work, sorry. The only way forward is through. So you might as well accelerate it a bit. No, that's naughty, I can't say that. Anyway, I've gone way off track here. How does this all relate back to why it's so important to post online? Well, looking at the events of, recent years and months, I don't think it's too unreasonable to say that we could end up in a situation very soon where law and order breaks down and people are forced to live within their own groups and find their own tribes of people for safety and protection. And in a society like that, trust is very low. Social cohesion and social trust is going to be very low. And the way that you earn somebody's trust is to demonstrate that you are consistently who you say you are through your actions over a long period of time. You know, me and my best friend were discussing this, right? And I think I owed him like 10 quid for a meal or something, and I was joking. It's like, this is all part of my master plan. Like, I've known you for over a decade now, and it's all come to this. I just wanted this £10. I'm going to ditch you and run. And he said, well, I've got over a decade of evidence that you're not going to do that. And I realised that is what trust is. So in a society that is broken down and that is very low trust, what's the easiest way to demonstrate trust to a group of people who you might need to become a member of for your own protection? Well, it's to have years of online history of you being authentically yourself, being a good person, doing good things in the world, and acting in a way that is consistent with who you say you are. So, yeah, long story short, that is why I think that if you're a good person in 2025, the advantages of posting authentic content online, even if only 30 people ever see it, far outweigh the disadvantages. Because there may come a time where you need to prove to a group of people for your own safety that you should be allowed to go and join them, or at least have their protection for a little bit. Something to think about. Just thinking about it now as well, and I realised that I made that kind of future sound very dystopian. And in some ways it could be, but I don't think that it has to be either. I think a future where we start to move towards decentralised tribes who can freely associate between one another. You know, it's not like a cult where you're stuck in one and you can't leave. I think that could be a positive step forward for humanity, because it's a bit like natural selection and evolution, right? The reason that evolution is such an effective strategy for finding success is because you have hundreds of millions of different variations being tested against the environment at the same time. And that's something that we don't do with society at the moment. We found one model, which is the capitalist system, which works well enough and also, rather conveniently, happens to really benefit the people in power. And now they don't want to try any alternative options. And they've created a lot of fear around the idea of that as well. It's like, oh, you know, if we move beyond the capitalist system, then towards anarchy. You know, anarchy is chainsaw-wielding murderers who show up outside your house and they're only held back by our brave boys in blue. I don't really think that's true. You know, I think human nature does tend towards the good. And so I do envisage a world where people are able to create their own kind of social groups and tribes as being a positive step. And from a more kind of light-hearted angle, being able to demonstrate a history of authenticity and high morals online is what's going to allow you access into these, I guess, cool groups, like the first ones, the pioneering groups, like the one that I'm starting with my mate. I don't know, just a thought. It's all just a thought, really. Nothing I say should ever be taken seriously. It's all a joke, and I will never kill myself. Let's talk about power. So to acquire power, you first have to master yourself. Once you've mastered yourself, you basically unlock the ability to predict the future, right? We spoke about this before, because if you take the actions every single day that you say that you're going to take with an overarching goal in mind, you will reach that goal and manifest the future that you had in your mind into reality. And once you've demonstrated with sufficient proof that you actually can do this, you'll find it quite easy to start to recruit other people to your cause as well, because suddenly they trust and believe in you. And if your goals are aligned, they see in you that you can be the vehicle to take them to where they want to go. So this fundamentally is what leadership is. And you know, in the ancient times, right, if you wanted power and wealth, the best way to accrue that would be to gather a group of like-minded men together and consistently drill and train to create like a mercenary band, right? I'm talking like way back in history. Because again, if you can say with conviction that every single day I am going to be in this place at this time working towards this goal, and you find other people that find that goal compelling as well, that's how you build a dedicated band of brothers, right? So anyway, previously, the way that you would accrue wealth and power is you would do this, you'd build this band of brothers, and then you'd go out conquering. You'd go out and you would pillage and loot, and that was what success looked like. And then we went through a bit of a renaissance, and we decided that actually violence is pretty bad. You know, it's no longer something to be revered in society, and instead there is more honor in becoming rich. And so then we transitioned into like this capitalist age, right, where now the game of capitalism has become the substitute for the game of barbarism. And when you now have a driven and dedicated and motivated leader who has sufficiently mastered himself to the point where he can, you know, take the actions necessary each day to accrue wealth through playing the capitalist game, then he starts a company. And the company is essentially just the modern day version of the mercenary group from way back when. And I think the phase that we're going through now is similar to the phase that we went through when we decided that violence and barbarism was bad. We're now going through the phase societally where we realize that endlessly accruing more wealth is just as in morally poor taste as going out and killing people for it. And I think that this is an essential part in our evolution as a species, where we have to change the culture to the point where society no longer holds success and wealth and status as like the highest good, or at least the definition of success isn't so closely tied with power, wealth, and status. You know, I think in the age that we live in now, this digital age where you can be completely transparent online, I think that we're seeing a shift to where people actually value integrity and moral character and somebody doing good in the world as the most admirable quality that you can have. And I think that this is a good thing, ultimately, because, I mean, sure, you know, as much as you can say, oh, well, you should live your life for you, you know, you shouldn't live in accordance with the beliefs of others. At the end of the day, we are social creatures, and men particularly do seem to be highly motivated by the perception of their standing within the tribe or within society. Men like to feel useful, right? And, you know, for the last few hundred years, we've been telling men that the way that they can be the most useful is to be the most successful. And the way that you be the most successful is to be the most rich. And this leads to a lot of morally unscrupulous behavior, and is, I would say, one of the big reasons behind the state that we've ended up in today. So if we can instead shift that line of thinking to say that the man who is most useful is the man who most selflessly helps others, and we create that as the new highest societal good, then I think what you will find is a lot of ambitious young men who suddenly realize that they can do that too, and they can find their place in society by being the most helpful, contributing, selfless member of the tribe. So this is the kind of philosophy, it's still very half-baked, as you can probably tell, but this is the kind of philosophy that I think is becoming more prevalent in the world today. You know, I speak to a lot of people like myself who want to start community and want to buy land and live communally with their friends. You know, it's the dream, right? It's everybody's dream. Everybody wants to live in a little village with all their friends. And we can make it happen. You know, we can use capitalism as the vehicle to get us there. You speak to a lot of people who are, you know, anti-capitalist and commies and all that, and, you know, it's like they've understood the problem, but then thrown all of their toys out the pram. And I don't think that it's realistic to suddenly abolish capitalism overnight. I believe that moving beyond it is just part of our evolutionary process, and we have to use it as a vehicle for change. And that starts with conscious entrepreneurs who have the ability to create wealth, and then also the moral integrity not to use that wealth to buy a Lambo or go and flex on all the poor people, but to actually help others. So if that sounds like you, then I think we should talk.